An adopted man who met his half-brother and sister for the first time in his 50s on the ITV show Long Lost Family has learned he has a third secret sibling. John Ayton, 59, who was brought up in Meltham near Huddersfield, learned he was adopted as a child when he wanted to sign up for his local football team and needed to provide his birth certificate as proof of ID. John, who was devastated to learn that both of his parents had died at an early age, contacted the TV show after years of fruitlessly searching for details of his real family. Long Lost Family tracked down John's father's two other children, Stephen, who lives in Blackpool, and Gaynor, who lives in Bulgaria, and staged an emotional on-air reunion for the John and Stephen. John met Gaynor later off camera. And a special revisit episode on Monday night revealed the team has located a third sibling on James's mother's side, leaving John stunned to learn his mother, who had him at 17 and died at 19, had a second child in the interim. Thanks to Long Lost Family, John is in touch with his half-sister, Diane, who lives in Worthing. John, who said he'd always felt unloved and unwanted, had applied for his adoption file when he was a teenager, heading to the local library to comb through birth and death records. He discovered his mum Marlene Monroe, who was 17 when she had him, had passed away, but couldn't find any information about his father Kenneth Harrison, 22, until Long Lost Family helped him to find out more. When John, who recently became a grandfather for the first time, learned of a third sibling, he had been stunned. "It's all been a shock," he said. "There's almost no possibility that Mum could have been pregnant between the times that she had me and passed away. And yet hang on a minute, this is my sister, a sister I never even knew about. It's better than winning any lottery." John met his half-sister Diane for the first time away from the cameras, and 4 months on in the What Happened Next episode of the series they met for a third time in London. "It blew me away all of a sudden. I've got this sister in front of me, it's unreal," he said. "I didn't think there was any chance of any more siblings at all." He learned that Diane was just 5 months old when their mother Marlene passed away after giving birth to her second child in October 1960, just 2 years after having John. Marlene had married a man called Ronald Dickinson just a few months before she died in 1961. Ronald had also passed away, but the research team set about looking for other family members. They learned from a cousin that Ronald and Marlene had had a child themselves, Diane, who now lives with her husband Derek. Diane said she was coming to terms with everything that has happened following the revelation that she had had a sibling her whole life. "It was a bolt out of the blue. I don't think anyone ever knew. I don't think my father knew. I couldn't really get my mind around it. The thought that I had an older brother. My mum's life was so tragically short, that I only ever thought there was me." Sadly for John, as Marlene died so young, Diane never knew her either and had no insights to share aside from some photographs and an eternity ring that she knew their mother had worn, but John wasn't disappointed. "The feeling inside of having this live connection to Mum is something I never thought for 1 minute I would experience," he said. "Our relationship is very new and we still have lots to find out about each other. I am looking forward to spending more time with Diane. I am loving every minute of it. It's great." In John's first episode of Long Lost Family, which aired in August last year, the ITV team spent 18 months looking for records and found that Kenneth had passed away in 2007, but he'd had a son and a daughter. Since meeting his half-brother, the two men have become incredibly close. "I've loved every minute of spending time with Steve," John said. "It's been the best thing in the world to make the connection with Dad, but there's still this little hammer in your head tapping away saying, 'You don't know anything about Mum.' There's still that burning desire in there to find that other 50% of me," he said on the revisit. Luckily his new half-sister Diane was able to fill in some gaps, including what Marlene looked like, sharing a photo of their mother as well as a Bible she owned.